welcome to the Storytime with Ellie podcast. And today, our special guest has worked with thousands of men worldwide to live better dating life and have better relationships. As a senior coach with Modern Success, he has the opportunity to travel across the country, helping individuals grow their confidence in all areas of life. Let's welcome Dale Valor.
Three.
Oh my God, everyone, they know me. I'm going to have you, how do you say that last name?
Valor.
Valor. My
Yeah,
brain didn't want it to say it that way. But we're good.
That's
And
how
you're
people in
here.
Europe always say it, Valor. And I'm like,
Oh, did I say Valor? I think it's like,
that was what you said the first time. And then you kind of did like this little combo thing.
oh, it's so funny. Oh, well, it's like that's part of the beginning of my podcast is usually discussing their names. But yes, and we have Dale with us today, and he's going to talk to us about his book, The Inner Game, and how to fix your dating life.
Ellie, I am so excited to be here. Like, for real. Like, I love the opportunity to do these because, there's so many people out there. They just look, their dating experience is terrible. Their relation experience is terrible. And it's funny to me how, like, in today's day and age, it's almost like that almost gets put on the back burner, but it's really fundamentally one of the most important things in our lives is the relationships that we establish with others, and it's like the one thing on planet Earth that you don't do your own due diligence for. It's like if you're going to buy a house, right? You're going to get a home inspection. You're going to get an appraisal, right? You're going to look at all these other houses, make sure you're getting the right one. Same thing with a car. Same thing with toothpaste. I mean, like whatever it is, you want to get the best product available that you can afford and right?
Well, you're 100% correct, Dale. But the problem with that, as human nature, we think with the wrong head. But you are on today, and you're going to explain and help people how to direct them, right? You're going to show them this tool that's going to help them and direct them possibly to finding a better relationship. Other than with themselves out there. Yeah. You go.
I mean, I say this all the time. I work primarily with men, like 99.99%, and the women that I do work with generally are people that I already know, you know what I mean?
Gotcha.
But I mean, I think this transcends gender, but I say this all the time. A man that knows who he is and knows what he wants is a dangerous man. Unfortunately, most men don't know either, and I think that really extrapolates to all people, all people, don't really know who they are. They kind of have this vague idea of who they are, right?
I visualize a hot air balloon, where sometimes it could be like a hot air balloon, or a balloon, just drifting and floating, and whatever the wind is blowing, that's where they're going.
Until it runs out of helium. Right? So, and most people really don't know what they want. I mean, honestly.
Well, that's a big thing.
But they like to think they know both, and it's unfortunate that people kind of that they do that because if you don't know what you want, you're liable to wind up with anything, right? Or anybody, and then a lot of this is all predicated on who you are as an individual, and so if you can't articulate or define who you are beyond your name and what you do, like, how can you expect to find somebody that really resonates with who you are as an individual if you can't even define it yourself?
Exactly. If you don't know who you are, how can you? Well, that's what we always tell people too. Try to, when you're coming out of a relationships or just even before you figure out who you are.
Yeah.
That's the best way, because now you're going to attract, and you could see, right? You could see the difference on people, on what they are, what they're saying, and you're like, oh, I don't want somebody like that. I mean, you're going to weed out a lot of people. You're going to weed out a lot. It may be a harder journey, but you'll get there. But you're going to share some of this with us today, and I want you to, if you can, Dale, it's definitely of an interesting story, and that's why I'm pleased that you're on here today, and I really thank you for being a guest, because I loved your story. I loved your story, but it was interesting that I think our listeners would like to hear it, 'cause I love your story, but
It's a choose your own adventure.
oh, yeah, choose it, yeah, pick your poison, I always say. Um, yeah, so, let's start back, how you started this journey in relationship coaching, teaching men
Yeah.
this power, we're gonna call it a power.
Yeah. So um basically I came up in music, and I had a fairly successful music career for about a decade.
Mhm.
And in that time, I had gotten married, and I'm still married to the same woman, 22 years, going
Mhm.
strong. So, but we had gotten married and things like that in my early, well, mid 20s, I guess. And and then once my music career wrapped up, and I was spending more time at home, because I used to tour a lot and that kind of thing.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
now I'm spending more time at home, and my wife one day, actually, let me take a step back. So I'm driving around, and I love talk radio. Love it. Like, if
Mhm.
somebody is talking on the radio, and I don't care what they're talking about, I will listen to it. Like, I'm just a
That's why this
sucker for
podcast.
listening to it. Right, right. Well, I have a background in radio as well. So it
Oh,
just,
cool, okay,
yeah. So I did
so
radio
you got
for
it.
many, many years. So, like, it's just, I don't know, it's just something that interests me.
You wanna
But
hear,
it's,
we wanna hear, yeah, I got it. Mhm.
yeah. So I'm listening to this local talk radio show in Detroit, and they had somebody on there that was talking about like dating and how to talk to women and how to communicate and things like that. And these concepts were just blowing my mind. But it became a thing of like, well, that's cool, but never really going to use that skill set because I'm already married,
Mm.
right? And so, but I thought it was really interesting. Psychology is a deep interest of mine, and so whatever, just kind of filed it away. And a few weeks later, my wife says to me, she wants to have a conversation. Like, all right,
Mhm.
cool. So we sit down and start talking, and she comes out to me as being bisexual. All right.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, so how do we navigate this? Like, what does this really mean? You know? And she was like, well, look, I want the opportunity to explore that side of myself, and see women and things like that. And I'm like, okay. And I'm trying to, like, again,
Yeah,
navigate my way
process,
through
yeah,
that. Right.
process
Yeah.
this. Yeah,
And
think,
so,
process.
right. So,
Mm.
um, so this is, and she said this to me. She was like, I'm totally okay with, if you want to date and, see women too. And, so basically kind of have an open relationship to an extent,
Mhm.
and she's like, because I don't think it's fair for you, if I'm out doing my thing, what are you going to do? You're just going to sit at home and twiddle your thumbs or something, like, what are you going to do? And
Yeah,
so,
I mean, that's, I just have to say, and I know I'm cutting into your story, but,
no, you're fine.
um, that's an amazing statement or what happened between the 2 of you at that moment.
Yeah.
How many men would want that moment? There may be some that do, because
Oh,
that
I
is
made a lot
like,
of mistakes. Don't get me wrong.
eh,
I was like,
okay.
okay, how
Well,
do we?
well, this is where you get where I'm coming, I'm backing it up, right? Like,
Right.
wow, your wife is like into other women and she says for you to go out and do what you like to do. That could be, and many men can have that dream, that, they may dream that every day. But you're
Yeah.
gonna talk about what you went through now. I just had to
Right.
point that out.
So,
It's
so what happened was, now I'm like, okay, I had kind of have a second lease on a dating life. And
Mhm,
albeit me being married, I really didn't have a lot of dating experience. Like, she was my second girlfriend,
mhm.
and I really didn't feel confident in being able to express myself to women and things like that. And then on top of that, I'm married too. Right.
Mm.
So, that's obviously for a lot of women going to be a non-starter, and so I'm like, okay, so what do I do? Right. So I jump on the computer, and I'm Googling, how do I talk to girls? How do I flirt? You know, and so, like, this regular information comes up or whatever, but then something comes up that was a lot of that verbiage that I had heard on that radio show. And I was
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
oh, you know what? this is what they were talking. I think this is the same dude that was on that show. And so I start watching that. And then I fall down this rabbit hole of, like basically it was like the very seeds of like the dating industry at that point. Like this is all way, way new, right? We're talking about like 2005. Okay.
Mhm.
And all this was very, very new. So I'm consuming all this information, like YouTube. Like now, if you want to look up like on YouTube how to talk to girls or how to flirt with women, things like that. There's a million videos, mine included. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
huh?
Like it's very easy to find, but back then,
No, I get
you know,
you.
it,
Yeah,
it just
totally.
wasn't around. And so, for like the next 10 years, like, well, let me say this, for the next 3 years after that, a lot of bumping my head, a lot of trial and error, a lot of making a fool out of myself, a lot of messing things up. But eventually I kind of got it figured out. By 10 years I was really, really good. Okay. And that's kind of what led me into coaching. Is I found a community that was local to me of a lot of guys that were on the same type of journey.
Mhm.
And it was very organized, and there's about anywhere between 40 and 120 guys coming out once a month, and things like that, hearing lectures and presentations and all this and that. Within a few months I was basically second in charge of that group. I was the vice president. All right.
Mhm.
And and then we had taken in that group, there's about 10 of us. We go to Thailand. All right. And
Wow, okay.
and I was a little bit older than
Mhm.
most of these guys, like my journey here didn't start till I was like 31. All right. So now
Okay.
I'm in my 40s at this point. You know, we go to Thailand. And so I'm kind
What
of
made
like
them go to Thailand? What did Thailand what made them go to Thailand, this group?
just a trip, somewhere exotic, somewhere
Okay,
different,
okay, cool.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, for fun, um, so anyway, we go over there, and I'm kind of like the de facto big brother, cool uncle,
Mhm.
whatever. And, you know, these guys are all coming to me for advice. How do I go talk to this girl over here? We're at the club. Hey, what should I say to go talk to them? Da, 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 da. And everything I was telling them was just landing, 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 landing. And
Wow,
so,
buckshots.
yeah. And so on my 21-hour flight home, I had a lot of time to think, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I think I might be able to coach this. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of where everything started for me. Then inevitably, I started my own company, and was doing pretty well with that. And then a bigger company, Modern Success. We're one of the biggest men's lifestyle development companies on the planet.
Mhm.
They kind of stepped in and bought me out essentially, and brought me on staff, and I'm one of the
Nice,
senior
that's the way to
coaches there
go,
now.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of like the broad strokes, I
Mhm,
guess.
yes.
But yeah, so that's kind of how that kind of came into play.
Wow, that is, interesting, it's intriguing. Can you tell us a little bit about, some of the teaching of how you
Yeah.
teach? Like,
So
maybe give us a sample
sure, sure, sure.
for our
So
listeners?
all right. So what I do is my lane within
Right.
Modern Success. The way I like to look at it is like kind of like a doctor's office, right?
Mhm.
Or a complex. Like they'll have all these little doctor's offices, specialists,
Mhm.
things
I
like
got you.
that.
Mhm.
Well, that's the way Modern Success kind of is, right? So each of us kind of have our own distinctive things that we coach and talk
Mhm.
about, stuff like that. I mean, we do business coaching, we do health and fitness coaching, we do time management coaching. I mean, we do it all, right?
Mm.
But my specific lane is inner game. And the way that I define that is the relationship that you have with yourself.
Mhm.
If you don't have a good relationship with yourself, how can you expect to have a good relationship with anybody else?
Mhm.
If you don't like yourself, how can you reasonably expect anybody else to like you? Right.
Right.
So that's what I coach and work on, is help raising confidence, reducing anxiety, getting out of your own head, killing self-sabotage, that negative voice inside your head that tells you that you can't. It's like, let's stomp that bitch out. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Totally.
and so now you can get out there and do all the things that you need to do, whether it's in health, wealth, relationships, without holding yourself back, right? And so one of the fundamental things, kind of circling right back to the very beginning of this podcast episode, is foundationally, you got to know who you are and you got to know what you want. And so an exercise that I run students through is, I call it an intrinsic value exercise. All right. And so, we are a culmination in terms of identity. We're a culmination of a few factors. All right. Nature and nurture, right? If you were raised a certain way, there's going to be a somewhat predictable outcome, right?
Correct. Yes.
And then you're also going to be, I mean, by the way, let me just preface that a little bit and say that, it's obviously not a set in stone, right? Like, people come out of crazy situations all the time, but that's more the exception to the rule, right?
Yeah,
So,
I got you.
and then nature, you're going to have predispositions genetically, just from your family lineage. If you come from a family of alcoholics, if you're not checking yourself, you're likely to be the next.
Right. So when they come into you when they say, okay, I'm going to take your course, right? They're going to take your course. Is this one of the processes that you do when they come in? You analyze them? Do you?
Yeah, we do that. We do. Yeah.
Kind of thing to help them get through that? Because that's pretty detailed.
Yeah. This isn't one of the things that when they're coming in, you know what I mean? But because what we do is we have classes 2 times a day. And so, in my class, generally they'll bring whatever they're struggling with,
Okay.
and sometimes it's this, but this is something that, I've done a million videos on this very thing,
Okay.
this intrinsic value exercise. I think it is very, very, very foundational.
Yeah. Very.
So, another thing, your experiences that you've had in life. If you've had a bunch of traumatic experiences, you're probably going to have trust issues. You're probably going to be dealing with a lot of baggage, right? If everything's just been peachy keen your entire life, you're probably going to expect good things to happen to you, right?
Yeah.
The next thing, your environment where you grew up. Like, I grew up in Detroit. Okay, I'm Detroit through and through. And I grew up.
I have a lot of friends in Detroit.
Oh, okay, very cool. I know you're from New York. You know what they say?
We're like right across. What?
Are you from the city?
No, I'm actually from upstate New York. I'm from the country. I'm about 80 miles northwest of Manhattan. But it's like Detroit, if we drive through like this Rochester, which is the upstate, if you like drive straight across, it's like, I think you're like 8 hours. It's like you're not that, or 7 hours or something. I didn't realize we're all that close, but yeah, we're up there. I'm up north. Yeah.
They always say, like, people that I know from New York that have moved to Detroit, they're like, Detroit is just like Brooklyn, just like it.
It is, yes, downtown Detroit, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
and I think your upstate more is like how I am upstate. I'm by lakes where I'm from. I'm in Florida now, but yeah, tons of lakes and the woods. And it it runs parallel. I think,
100%.
That's cool. That's cool.
So, but the way I put it is like, look, I grew up kind of in the hood, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
Detroit.
so, I grew up around a gang of Black people. So Black people have been my friends primarily for the better part of my life. And so that has obviously influenced the way that I carry myself, the way that I dress, the way that I talk to people, and things like that. Okay. If I'd have grown up much like you said, you're upstate. We call it up north in Michigan, but So, if I'd have grown up there, maybe I don't like those things. Maybe I like country music. Maybe I like going mudding. We
had an influx. I think it's because it was only 80 miles northwest of Manhattan. We had a lot of mixed.
Yeah.
A lot where we were and where I'm from. Yeah. 80 miles. So we're not Rochester. Yeah. So, but I got you. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
And so that plays a part into who you are. But the thing that people don't take account of is the intrinsic values, and so the exercise basically is this. I'll do it with you.
Okay, cool.
So,
yeah, let's go.
Okay, so if there is something, a personality trait, a characteristic, a quality, however you want to define it, about yourself that you respect and like about yourself more than anything else, what would that thing be?
I'm gonna say independence, my own mind.
Okay,
Does
cool.
that make sense?
Yep, it does.
Yeah, I kind of like,
Okay,
I'm very strong-minded.
right, I got you. So if there was a second thing, what would it be?
Um, what would that be? I'm given.
Okay,
I'm happy to give.
okay.
Um,
Independent, we'll say charitable.
yeah,
Independent, charitable.
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
There was a third thing, what would it be?
I can't think about that right now. Independent charity. Um, I guess resilience. Does that make,
Okay, cool.
can we throw that in
Yep.
the mix? Yeah,
Yeah,
very
sure.
resilient. Yeah.
100%. Okay, so there's 8 billion people on planet Earth,
Mhm.
right? So and there's really no way to know this, but just a stab in the dark.
Mhm.
What would be the percentage of people that are as independent as you are, or at least a level that you really respect?
I don't have a number, but there's not many. And
Okay, we'll say
I wasn't
10%.
gonna, what did you say? What was,
10%?
let's say 10%, ten
Okay,
percent.
cool.
Yes, because
Great.
I wasn't gonna say this. I'm actually kind of, am starting online. We are putting together this coaching group and it is to help mostly
Okay.
women do the
So,
same thing. You're doing, only I'm doing this for men, or women.
yeah,
You're doing men, I'm doing, that's what,
right. I
we might
got
have to
you.
partner up on one of our events.
I'm down. I'm down. So,
We're gonna join this force. We'll have a battle. No.
okay,
It's all
so,
good.
all right, so we're down to 800 million people now.
Yes, thank you
Okay.
for that number.
Of that 800 million people, how many of them are as charitable as you are?
Say 40%, 50? Can we say
40.
50%?
Okay, well, 50%. All right, so now we're down to 400 million.
Mhm.
Of that 400 million, how many of them are resilient as you are?
I think I'm gonna go back to that 10%.
Okay, so we're down to 40 million.
I hate
All
to say,
right.
I don't like to
So
judge, I don't wanna be the one to say, okay,
so here's the deal. What if I asked you for a fourth thing, a fifth thing? You were struggling at three, as
Yeah.
most people
Oh,
do.
yeah.
I've done this exercise a million times. So most people
Yeah.
at three, they're like, oh man, let me think.
Yeah,
So,
because it's like,
but what
we
if there
don't
was
really
a
think about
fourth, a
ourselves.
fifth, a sixth, a seventh, an eighth, right?
Mhm.
And so most people, when they really sit down and think about it, they come up with somewhere between 20 and 30 things when they
Mhm.
really take the time to think about it. All right.
Absolutely. Uh-huh.
But the thing is that you see where this is going. The more things that you have, the more that pool is shrinking, 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 right?
Mhm.
Eventually it gets down to a 1 to 1. And it would be a statistic. Say you had 25 things, it would be a statistical anomaly for anybody to have that same list in that same exact order, right? One in zillions, like
Mhm.
the chances are so small, it's ridiculous. So really what that is, I mean, that is you, you know,
Mhm.
those intrinsic values that you embody, that's who you are. All right. And so now that's like as good as a thumbprint, a DNA strand, whatever, because that is you. And so the thing is that when you know this, you know what value you bring to the table.
And it could be hard. It could be very hard to,
Right. But you're not good if you
mhm.
like look, if I walked into a club or a bar or wherever, and I just right before then, I stopped at the party store or liquor store. They call them party stores in Detroit.
Okay, cool.
I walk into the liquor store and I buy a scratch off lottery ticket, right? I won $5 million. You couldn't tell me nothing. When I get to the bar or the club or whatever, if some
Yeah.
girl doesn't like what I'm saying to her, she whatever rejects me, whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah, I
what I
got
mean?
you.
And so
You're on that
that's because
high.
I know this value that I'm bringing to the table, but we
Mhm.
don't look at our own intrinsic value in the same light, right?
Mhm.
But once you know what value you have,
I
you're
agree.
not going to settle for anything less than
Yeah,
you feel that somebody is worth
agree.
that
Mhm.
value. And if somebody doesn't, just doesn't, resonate with you
Mhm.
for whatever reason, then there's one of two things. Either you're communicating that value wrong, or she doesn't understand what value is. She just doesn't get it, you know? And so, so that's the thing. You can walk away if you communicated it correctly, you can walk away from that interaction with it like, well, guess she just kind of missed out because look at all this dope stuff that I bring to the table, right? So that's knowing who you are. That's
Yep.
being able to walk around with self-respect. And you are in a very, very select few that really understand that concept and really get the value that they bring. That'd be like if I didn't know the value of my house, and I have a real estate background, so I use,
Oh my God.
this.
Yes, I do too.
Oh, crazy.
It's
So
funny.
I
Yeah,
use this
yeah,
as a
I got you.
parallel a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
I
it's
got you.
like if you don't know the value of your house, you run the risk. If you're not running the comps, you run the risk of either pricing it too high
I love the
or
comparison.
too
Yeah,
low, right?
absolutely.
If it's too high, nobody's coming to see your house, right? So you're certainly not getting any offers on it, right? If the value is too low, yeah, you'll have a million people see it and you'll have a million offers, but not anywhere close to what your house is worth, right? So you're walking into every interaction, whether it's professionally, whether it's with dating, whether it's even in your own relationship, I can enforce boundaries. Why? Because I bring this set of value, intrinsic value to the table. And this is something that is a gold mine, and not in an egotistical way, but just simply knowing that quiet confidence, simply
It's
knowing what
yourself,
it is that
right?
you embody.
Well, it goes back to what you said in the beginning. We said we have to know ourselves. And
Right.
right, that was our first thing.
Yeah,
And this
exactly.
is what you're saying is exactly the same thing I'm always speaking about to a lot of, my friends or women, and I do coaching in my groups. It's the
Yeah,
same thing. I say know your worth.
right.
Know your worth. And that's how I word it. But it's identical to what and I understand totally what you're doing, and I think it's a great thing. And people do need the education.
Yeah,
And you wouldn't believe, I mean, you can't teach it in school, but you just wouldn't believe that as adults, constantly in all these relationships that are just so, and I'm always like, fix yourself. They're
yeah,
knocking other people on what they're doing. I says, what, figure out what you want before you put yourself in that show,
right.
before you enter that. And when you know your work, just like you just said, when you know that, you can identify. You may not be in a relationship right away, but it's okay. Because when you do finally get it,
Yep,
it's going to be the quality and what fits, the shoe will fit. I
absolutely.
agree.
And
Yeah, I love what you're doing. Great.
one
I love it, yeah.
thing that most people, what they do is they determine their value
Mhm.
on what other people's response to them is. And then they internalize that, right?
Mhm.
Oh, I've been treated like a loser my whole life. I must be a loser, you know?
Mhm.
And, I mean, there's something to be said with, well, okay, how are you presenting yourself to people? How are you communicating with people? All, like, yeah, it's a fair question, but it doesn't mean that you are a loser. What it means is that you've lost. That
Mhm.
doesn't make you a loser. What that means is, okay, now I have empirical data that I can work on that I can start improving. If I'm a basketball player and I'm out here taking jumpers and it's clank, 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 clank,
Mhm. Mhm.
when the shooting coach comes around, they're like, hey, Dale, just tuck your elbow in a little bit. Swish,
Mhm.
swish, swish, swish. Is it, like, am I just a bad shot or I just have bad form? I just have bad
Right.
form. And once I
Mhm.
fix that,
Right. Yeah, I
so
got you. Yeah. Love
yeah,
it.
but this exercise, what that does is that emboldens you to be able to say, like, okay, I don't need external validation from
Mhm.
people. Yeah, it's nice to get, don't get me wrong, all right, but I don't need it because I know what I bring to the table.
And that could be false leading as well. You know,
Oh yeah, yeah,
sometimes people can hype you up to this and that. No, you want to run around with that peacock syndrome.
yeah,
And
yeah,
meanwhile, you're false. You're not, in other words, so it's hard for you to, you got to recognize what you're saying. Maybe I went off a little tangent there, but you have to understand who you are. And I think what your program is doing is that's what it's helping people identify who they are inside to help them go out and make better decisions, right?
Right,
Yeah,
100%.
love
You
it.
know,
Love it.
it,
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in purpose and
Mhm.
having a compass, right? And the thing is that if you look for external validation and it's something that you need, you are subject to selling yourself out, going against what you think is
Yeah.
right to get somebody else's validation. Why is their validation so important? Why does it mean something?
Mhm.
Like, sure, there's circumstances in which, like, I want the president of this company to validate me because that puts me in a better position to get a raise or
Right. Mhm.
whatever, move up the company ladder or whatever. Okay, fine. But at the end of the day, if you absolutely need validation from people, you'll do whatever it takes to get it, and whatever it takes is a bad place to be in because now
Mhm.
people can leverage that against you because they know it's very easily figured out. We all know the person from high school
Mhm.
that no matter what kind of like little clique that they're hanging out with,
Mhm.
they try to fit in, right? They try to talk like this group and act like this group. And
Mhm.
then when they're over here talking to this group, now they're trying to talk like that group and act like this group. And
I
guess
get
what?
it.
That person doesn't get accepted by any of these groups.
No, and they
You
just
know
keep going
what I mean?
around, and then these people grow up and they're doing the same thing as in their adult life.
Yeah,
They never really figure themselves out. They're just like wherever the wind is blowing, they're going. And that's when it's funny, that's why I said resilience. I'm like, you gotta just be grounded in who you are.
right.
Now, on your program, they get you through a website, or how do they come to you? They Google
Yeah,
you?
so I mean, there's a bunch of different ways, really, but the best way to really get in touch with me, and
Mhm.
it's funny because that exercise that the intrinsic value
Yeah.
exercise, I actually have it on my site, a
Yeah,
video of that
totally.
very thing. But free gift from Dale.com, and
Mhm.
so you can go there and you can rewatch because I kind of ran through it to be fair because I know
It's
we're on a
okay.
time limit,
Of
but
course. Mhm.
but it really goes in much more detail. And plus on that site, you get the first chapter of my book Inner Game for free.
Yeah, well,
And
we're gonna talk about that in a minute. Yeah, but
yeah,
we're gonna put all your information, have them to get a hold of you on the podcast as well. So any of our listeners too, get in, like like all this, you can get in there and find out how to get a hold of you.
yeah.
And that's a great thing. But just a little bit, on your classes, how long do they last? Are they like six
An
weeks, a
hour.
year, and they're about an hour a week?
Well, no, I mean, we have two classes pretty much every day,
Hmm.
sometimes three in a day.
Oh, wow.
But but that doesn't mean I'm doing two or three classes a day.
Hmm.
I do three classes a week.
Hmm.
So much
Okay,
like a college course, you know what I mean? Like you're
I
gonna go
got
to
you.
this
Oh.
course and this class and this, you know what I mean? So
Hmm.
because we have all kinds of like different things that we touch on and stuff like that. So yeah.
Okay, cool. So they can register, go on there, and when they get into class, is it just an hour, or can they go? Is it like a 6-week program? Is it a
No, I mean, we've had people in our program for years,
wow? Okay,
yeah,
nice. Yes,
yep,
yes,
yeah,
yes. It's like
and
going to anything else. A coach, you're a coach, therapist,
yeah,
whatever. You
yep,
might as well stick with somebody who knows how to get where you want to go.
100%,
Yeah.
and like, look, the people that do well in our
Mm,
program are the people that put in the time. We came to find that if somebody can dedicate 4 hours a week
hmm.
to self improvement in with dating and relationships,
Hmm.
they'll kill it. Which doesn't sound like
Nice.
a lot of time, you know what I mean?
No, because
4
they
hours
spend
a week.
years trying to figure it out.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's
And some don't ever get to figure it
like
out.
I said, it took me really about 4 years to be what I
Yeah.
would consider being able to be good with communicating with
Yeah.
people.
Mhm.
Before that, like I was, even though I had done music professionally and I could talk to a crowd of 1,000, no problem, all right, on stage,
Mhm.
but being one on one was terrifying to
Wow.
me.
And I know we're gonna circle back. The main thing was we talked about in the beginning, should make it people wondering whatever happened to the wife. What happened to your marriage with your wife? Did we say
We're
it?
still married,
Oh,
22
okay, yeah.
years,
Okay, cool.
and yeah, I mean, Everything's good. We're still in the same, we still have the same dynamic,
Okay,
that we did and everything. And so yeah, I mean everything's
beautiful.
great.
Yeah, no, it worked for you guys. Yeah,
Mhm.
why not?
Yeah.
Very nice.
Why
Okay,
fix
cool.
what's broken?
Yeah, yeah, well, yes, if you listen, that's what we were saying in the beginning. If it could work, why not? It's, purpose and putting it together and figuring it out, and
Yeah.
it works for you.
I will say this though,
Mhm.
sometimes people get this idea that I'm trying to push some type of alternative lifestyle or something like that. I say this all the time. Speaking of like, what works, right?
Yeah, but
Um,
you can't judge if you're
right,
happy and you know,
exactly. But what I like to tell people is like this, you know, it's not about what works for me, it's about what works for you, right?
exactly.
Like
Oh yeah,
it's
totally.
what works best for the individual, not like some type of template or blueprint to say, no, this is what a successful life looks like, this is what a successful
Uh,
relationship looks like, because a lot of people, it's
Yeah,
not the same, you
but
know what I mean?
I totally agree, Dale. But the funny thing with the relationships, and say your particular relationship,
Mhm.
okay, you're educated, you're smart, you and your what you're doing is fine, nothing wrong with it. I know, and I'm not going to sit here and spell it, but or write names out and give you a list, but I cannot tell you how many relationships that I coach,
Yeah.
either just one, either one, that are staying married and doing very similar things. And you
Mhm.
know something? It's okay.
Yeah,
If it
no
works
doubt.
for that individual, who is anyone to come in? Because here's the story.
Yeah.
They may be together, they're doing their thing, and if they break up, now they're gonna have to meet someone who's gonna want what they do. These two people are okay with it.
Yeah.
So any no, you can't throw a stone at it, but
Right.
there's a lot of open marriages.
Yeah.
Listen, I
And
mean,
I'll tell you,
very common,
like
very,
we,
very common, especially where I live.
yeah, we
But I tell you where I live, though. Yeah.
at Modern Success, we are responsible because we track this stuff. We are responsible for 286 marriages, and that's only the ones that we know about. There's ones
Mhm.
that we probably don't even know
Oh,
about,
yeah. Mhm.
you know. And so, are all those marriages open marriage? No, of course not. I would say
Yeah.
it's probably a very small percentage,
Well, unless you live where I live. Like, I'm not gonna say everything. Move there'll be plane loads coming down. No. No, it just seems like there's a lot of people that you sit there and you think like, well, I mean, they'll come up and they're talking to you and they got rings on and everything, and you're like, and they're like, well, my wife don't care. My wife's over there.
Yeah,
Over there talking to somebody else, and you're like, okay, well, I'm good. No, and it's fine. Everyone's got it.
sure.
Everyone does their own thing. So yeah, I mean, we don't throw stones. Everybody's got their thing, and as long as it works for the individuals, that's all that matters. Yeah. Very
Yeah,
cool.
no doubt, no doubt.
Anything else you'd like to share with us, Dale, before we head
Um,
out? What did we miss? Did we miss anything? No, I think we're gonna get you got a
well,
great
I mean,
program. Yeah.
um, well, my book Inner Game.
Right. I
So
did have that down here. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, where's that book?
it's
Where's
all
that book?
good. We got a lot to talk about, right?
I know
So
we're gonna go on again. I think
it's all
we're gonna
good.
do a follow-up.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, just briefly, my
Inner
book
game.
Inner
Yeah,
Game.
let's go.
It's on Amazon and all the places you would expect and things like that. But I do have a new book coming out. I just got the fourth revision actually right before we jumped on,
Mhm.
so I need to go through it. But Unlocking Unstoppable Confidence. That's a new book that's
Nice.
going to be coming out soon. That's kind of a 30-day tutorial on
Mhm.
how to improve your confidence, and it's not just for guys, by the way. That particular book,
I
it's
love it.
for
Nice.
anybody, and it's not really through a dating lens. Inner Game is kind of through a dating lens, um, but this book is just it's everyday practical things that you can employ, that you can go out and start doing to start raising your own self-confidence. So if you do every
Nice.
one of those things in a month,
Great. So you have
you
a
know,
practice in the book. So that's great. And this is good for people who don't want to go to a class or
yeah,
don't want
yeah,
to go through the public, too. I,
sure,
I mean, the whole 9 yards. They get
yeah,
to do this on their own time, their own schedule.
yeah.
Nice. And that book is called again, you said it, but I was going to just write it
Unlocking
down.
Unstoppable Confidence.
A Rock and Unstoppable Confidence.
Yeah, yep.
Great. Okay. And that's going to be out when?
We don't have the release date yet
Mhm.
because, like I said, I got the fourth revision today.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I
and
know.
we still got to do like the graphic, like the cover art
Okay.
and stuff still. I mean, maybe a month, maybe two, something like
Well, we'll
that.
have to look for that.
Yeah. And then inner game, that is about, basically there's like 5 core concepts there. And that's, confidence, self-esteem,
Mhm.
setting boundaries, the nice guy syndrome, and you think I know my own book.
No, that's all
I
right.
can't think of the 5th thing off the top of my
I'm on
head.
this. I have to. I don't know my name.
Basically killing negative self-talk,
Mhm.
getting out of your own head, in other words.
Love it.
So, yeah.
Nice. Wow. Wow. Good. Thank you, Dale. I appreciate
Thank
you
you.
coming on to the Storytime with Ellie podcast, where everybody has a story. What's yours? You just told us. Love to have you back on again.
I'd love to. I would
Yeah,
absolutely
we
love
have
to
more to
come back
talk
on.
about. I think we really do. We can go. This is go. This is cool. I got you. We're gonna connect. And
Yeah, I'm
we're
glad we
gonna.
did.
Yeah, yeah. Ooh, I think you can see my wheels are turning. All right. Thanks again, Dale.